Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today we're plunging headfirst into, well, one of humanity's most enduring and captivating topics, ancient prophecies about the end of the world. Specifically, we're focusing on these really enigmatic figures, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, often known as Gog and Magog, and their truly dramatic role in various end times narratives. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission is to take the sources you've shared, sort of distill the most compelling prophecies around these figures, uncover their surprising origins, and deeply understand their significance across different traditions.
And what's truly fascinating about this deep dive, I think, is how it reveals this universal human impulse.
Yeah.
How different belief systems wrestle with concepts of global cataclysm, these ultimate threats, and maybe the ultimate resolution of evil. We'll pinpoint the unexpected connections and also the unique interpretations these sources offer, hopefully giving you a really comprehensive understanding of how diverse traditions see these looming apocalyptic events.
Right, so let's set the stage, because our sources immediately create this powerful sense of an impending end. It's quite striking. For instance, the Jewish book Talmud. It proposes that the entire age of the world is only 6,000 years. And here's the kicker for you. Out of that, 5,700 years have apparently already passed, leaving just 3 centuries remaining. That's a pretty tight timeline, isn't it?
It really is.
And complementing this, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made an equally striking statement. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Just as these two fingers are close to each other, in the same way I and doomsday are also close to each other."
Yeah, a key insight here is how these parallel ideas, one, a precise chronology from Jewish tradition, the other, this profound sense of nearness from Islamic teachings. Well, they both instill a very specific, almost immediate urgency about the world's end. It beautifully underscores this shared human preoccupation with eschatology, the study of end times, across what seem like very different belief systems.
And as our sources describe this predicted end drawing closer, one of the most significant and frankly dangerous threats to emerge is a figure known as Dajjal. He's described as the biggest and most dangerous fitna. That's an Arabic term meaning a trial or a tribulation or a calamity in the world.
A major, major trial.
Exactly. Now, prepare yourself, because our sources describe Dajjal as possessing truly extraordinary, almost unthinkable powers. He'll reportedly wield control over food, money, even rain. More astonishingly, he's said to have the ability to bring dead people back to life, his ultimate goal, to dominate the entire world and compel humanity to worship him instead of Allah Ta'ala, God the Most High.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's some serious power described there.
It really is. But beyond his terrifying powers, our sources describe another truly unique aspect of Dajjal, his presence on Earth. It's said to last for this extraordinary, almost incomprehensible duration of 40 days. However, these aren't normal days. One of his days will reportedly stretch to a full year, the second day will be as long as a month, and then the rest of the days will be like normal days. So the key takeaway here is that his reign, though numerically short, will feel immensely long. It'll span what would otherwise be years for those experiencing it.
That temporal distortion is fascinating in itself.
It is. And the fear surrounding Dajjal was so intense that when Prophet Muhammad first spoke of him, his companions became incredibly scared. They even thought Dajjal might be hiding nearby right then. But the Prophet reassured them, saying they would still be able to compete with him, meaning with Dajjal.
Right, but what's truly compelling in the narrative here, what's fascinating is how, immediately after discussing Dajjal and this immense threat, the Prophet then spoke of a force with whom no one will have the strength to compete. This powerfully elevates Ya'juj and Ma'juj, positioning them as an even more overwhelming, more destructive force than Dajjal himself. It sort of signals a hierarchy of threats,
Yeah.
leading up to the end.
Yeah, a kind of ultimate challenge. And when Ya'juj and Ma'juj do finally emerge, the destruction they'll unleash is described as truly apocalyptic. They are prophesied to consume everything in the world, including food, trees, and even all the water. It just sounds like this unstoppable devouring force, doesn't it?
Utterly consuming.
So that leads us to a fundamental question. How did these destructive forces, these Ya'juj and Ma'juj, actually come to be? Our sources take us back approximately 5,000 years to understand their genesis.
Yeah.
Their emergence is deeply connected to a time when, as the text says, man had gone beyond limits in his evils, and the whole world was full of sins. This apparently led Allah Ta'ala to send a great punishment, a colossal storm, which we often know as Noah's flood, that destroyed everything except those who found refuge on Noah's Ark.
The Great Flood narrative.
Right. And it's explained that all current humans are descended from Noah's 3 sons, Sam, Ham, and Yafis. And Yajuj and Majuj are specifically identified as descendants of Yafis, particularly those who settled in the harshest areas of the world, the north, places where the land was perpetually covered in snow, making farming and just basic sustenance incredibly difficult.
If we kind of step back and connect this to the bigger picture, this narrative really highlights a recurring human theme, doesn't it? How extreme environmental conditions and scarcity can profoundly shape societies, drive them to desperate measures. When basic survival is threatened like that, it can indeed lead to the development of, well, dangerous behaviors, like the plundering described here. It suggests a possible origin for their destructive nature, rooted in harsh necessity, maybe.
Indeed. As their numbers grew, life in those brutal conditions became so incredibly difficult that they simply lacked enough food. This desperate situation led them to develop the habit of plundering, harassing people in nearby areas, just like the animals of the forest snatch food from each other. It paints a picture of almost primal survival dictating their actions.
Survival at any cost, it seems.
Exactly. Now let's turn our attention to the legendary figure of Zulkarnain, also known in Islamic tradition as Dhu al-Qarnayn. He's described as a noble and powerful king in these ancient texts.
Okay, Zulkarnain.
Our sources tell us that on his third grand journey, Zulkarnain reached the extreme north. And there, he encountered a community that was completely different from him in everything. Even their language was alien. This community, it turns out, was living in terror, constantly being harassed and, well, terrorized by the plundering Yajuj and Majuj.
Ah, so he finds people already suffering from them.
Precisely. And desperate for relief, the community pleaded with Zulkarnain to build a formidable barrier or a wall between them and their aggressors. They even offered to collect donations, pay for the construction.
Makes sense. They were desperate.
Totally. But Zulkarnain's response was quite noble. He humbly declined their money. He said that Allah Ta'ala had already bestowed upon him abundant wealth and power. Instead, he asked for their physical help in building the wall, recognizing their labor as the real contribution needed.
Interesting. So a collaboration, not just a transaction.
Yes. And so Zulkarnain then embarked on building this strong wall between those mountains to protect this vulnerable community from the relentless onslaught of Yajuj and Majuj.
This raises an important question, I think, about our understanding of human history and myth. The enduring power, both symbolic and literal, of barriers. Whether it's the Great Wall of China or this mythical barrier, walls have consistently been seen as these ultimate protectors against external threats, be they physical armies or, metaphorical forces of chaos. It speaks to a deep, almost primal human need for security, for a sense of boundary against the unknown or dangerous.
That's a great point. And the story continues that Yajuj and Majuj try to breach that wall every single day. They're relentless in their attempts. They often get very close to breaking that wall, but then just as success seems imminent, their leader tells them they will do the rest tomorrow. And here's the truly miraculous part of the prophecy. Each night, Allah Ta'ala supernaturally restores the wall's strength, making it as impenetrable as it was initially.
Wow, so it's this daily cycle of near breach and divine repair.
Exactly. But the prophecy carries a crucial twist, a sort of chilling certainty. A day will definitely come that Yajuj and Majuj will be successful in breaking that strong wall.
The inevitable breach.
Which brings us to a profound contemporary mystery. In our modern era of advanced technology, satellite imagery, there's no such visible, massive iron wall like Zulkarnain's anywhere in the world that we know of. So this begs some powerful questions for you, our listener. Has that wall maybe already been broken and Yajuj and Majuj have already emerged, perhaps metaphorically, or are they not even on this earth at all? Maybe existing on some other plane, some other planet. There's a big ongoing debate among scholars and believers about this very point.
Yeah, and while the physical location or the current state of Yajuj and Majuj is indeed a subject of intense debate, one thing remains remarkably consistent across Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and that's the shared belief that Yajuj and Majuj will come sliding on the mountains in great numbers near the doomsday. This fundamental convergence, despite all the diverging specifics, truly bridges these different traditions. It underscores a deep theological agreement on their eventual overwhelming emergence.
Right. And those diverging specifics are precisely where things get really intricate and, frankly, quite dramatic. Let's delve into the Jewish perspective first, as presented in our sources.
Okay.
Our sources take us back about 2,600 years ago to the historical context when the powerful Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar snatched Jerusalem from the Jewish people and imprisoned millions, forcibly bringing them to Babylon. At that time, their prophet was Hazrat Hikil al-Salam, known in some traditions as Ezekiel.
Right, Ezekiel.
Prophet Hil al-Salam taught the Jewish people that their painful exile from Jerusalem was a direct consequence of their sins. However, he also prophesied a day when they would definitely regain Jerusalem, but only once they truly renounced their sins. And here's the critical part. After they settled there, an meaning a nation or people named Jews from the huge area, would launch this devastating attack, causing such immense destruction that no one would have the strength to fight them.
So a post-return attack prophesied.
Exactly. The Jewish view then concludes this prophecy by stating that their Messiah Dajjal, which refers to a messianic, albeit deceptive figure within their eschatology, will ultimately be the one to defeat and kill these forces of Jews from Majuj.
Okay, so their Messiah figure deals with them in that tradition.
That's the perspective presented. Now, let's turn to the Islamic perspective, which offers a different sequence of events. Islam states that Ya'juj and Majuj will come out after the end of Dajjal, right? So Dajjal comes first, then Ya'juj and Majuj. And at that time, Hazrat Isa al-Salam, or Jesus, as he's known in the Christian tradition, will be present on earth.
A different order of events there.
Yes, and it's reiterated that no one will be able to compete with these two communities, Ya'juj and Majuj, highlighting their overwhelming force. However, divine intervention is described. Allah Ta'ala will order Isa al-Salam to take all Muslims to Moon Sinai, a sacred mountain, and then Allah Ta'ala will supernaturally destroy all Ya'juj and Majuj through some kind of devastating disaster.
So divine intervention is the key in the Islamic view for defeating Ya'juj and Majuj.
It seems so. The source also provides what it claims are crucial triggers for these specific events. It states that all this will happen when the Jews will capture Palestine with their full power and will martyr the Muslims' mosque, Masjid Aqsa, there, and build their third and last temple in its place. Only then, the source explains, will Dajjal, who it specifically describes as the Messiah of the Jews, appear, followed by Isa al-Salam to ultimately end him. The source then adds a contemporary observation. There is not much time because almost 80% of Palestine has already been captured by the Jews. Now, it's really critical for us to emphasize here, we are simply conveying the information as presented within the source material, giving you these ideas without endorsing any particular viewpoint.
Absolutely, and what's truly striking in this section is how these prophecies, as they're laid out in the source, they intricately weave together specific historical events, revered religious figures, and even anticipated future geopolitical shifts. It's a powerful illustration of how ancient prophecies are often interpreted by believers to provide meaning and context to current global affairs. It really highlights this enduring human inclination to frame unfolding events within a larger spiritual or perhaps divine narrative. And again, just to reiterate, our purpose here is just to impartially convey the ideas contained within the source material, not to take any stance on their validity.
Well said. And that brings our deep dive into the mysterious world of Ya'juj and Majuj to a close. We've journeyed through ancient texts, explored modern interpretations, and traced the powerful story of these destructive yet somehow pivotal figures. We've covered their origins, the enduring myth of Zulkarnain's protective wall, and the diverging yet deeply interconnected prophecies in Judaism and Islam concerning their emergence and ultimate fate. It really is a rich tapestry of belief and profound anticipation.
Definitely. And as you reflect on this journey through these ancient prophecies, maybe consider this. These enduring narratives, regardless of your own personal beliefs, they really speak to universal human concerns, don't they? They touch on our anxieties about societal decline, the fear of cataclysmic events, and that perennial search for ultimate justice or resolution in the face of chaos. Think about how such prophecies continue to shape perceptions of global affairs in the future, prompting discussions and interpretations that have spanned millennia and clearly continue to resonate today. What do these persistent themes tell us about ourselves, maybe, and about our enduring quest for meaning in what often feels like a very uncertain world?